go from there. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to see so many of you here celebrating the book launch day. Yay!
Hey.
Launch day. So thank you all so much for being here. We're going to have a really fun hour and a half here. Lots of people are coming on to talk to us and give us some great things that are happening around the book. And so I'm going to turn it over to our MC, Cynthia Beeler, who's going to talk to us a little bit about what we're doing today.
Hey, everybody. I'm Cynthia, and I am your host for the next hour and half, hour and 15 minutes. Very high paid host that I won a lot of interviews and got to Marcia, and she deemed me in control of this amazing day for her. So I'm just glad to be a part of it. I'm going to talk about what our purpose is here in just a minute, but I did want to just share a story of how I got connected with Marcia, because it was about a year ago, and I joke that our friendship began with me cyber stalking her just for a little while before we connected. So I'm a consultant, I'm an angel investor, and I have a big passion behind film, especially film in the area of helping women in business. And so about a year ago, literally on the same day, I went to a coffee shop to work, but really I was avoiding work. So I started looking at things under some film search, and I came across this amazing documentary that was about to launch called Show Her the Money. And they were looking for cities to host it. And I sent a note out to my Power Chicks group in Charlotte and said, have you guys heard of this movie? I want to get some women together and let's figure out how we bring it to Charlotte. Literally on that same day, I started listening to Marcia's podcast. Didn't know who Marcia was, but someone who knew my passion around investing in female founders said, you should check this out. And at some point in my avoiding work that day, I linked the two and found out that Marcia was also a part of this movie. So it was a very bizarre day. So I sent her a note, and I pulled that note up, and it was September 23rd. And it said, hey, I just sent you a connection, but I thought I would explain who I am because I'm not trying to sell you something. And then gave her a little bit behind why I was reaching out. And she said, that sounds, great to meet you. Let's have coffee. And that's where I first met Marcia. And at the end of the conversation, we both made such a connection. She's like, do you want to go to New York and see that movie? And I said, what? And she said, you can come with me. I've got an extra ticket for the premiere in New York. So our journey started a year ago, and that's right when she was telling me about the book. So this is just an extremely fun day for me to celebrate this amazing woman. So what's our purpose? We're here to celebrate her amazing book, Do Good While Doing Well. So I got an early copy just so I could do this. Mine is en route to Amazon today. So what we want from this day is four things. Number one, we want to really encourage everybody that to drive traffic and buzz around the book. We need to get the algorithms of Amazon fueling so we can show this book to more people. So just a reminder, today the price of the ebook is 99 cents. So what a great way to send gifts to all the people in your network that you know need to have this book. It's also available in hard copy. The Audible version just recently dropped as well. And then we'll talk about it. There's an accompanying workbook. So there's a lot of things that you can purchase to get this traffic going. There's a link, and I'm not good at watching my chat, but I know Tiffany is dropping the link in the chat box and to get you directly to Amazon to start off by buying the book. All right, what's next? Reviews. They're super important today forward as we're launching this book. This is the first day that reviews have been able to be posted, and people have already posted their reviews. So that's something that you can do for her right away. A 5-star review is always appreciated, everybody. And Goodreads also accepts reviews, and that can be done anytime. But really get your reviews out as soon as possible. That helps get this in front of more people. Sometimes, just to note, it takes a little bit of time for your review to appear, so don't think it got lost. It could be a few hours, could be the next day, so you can watch for it, but don't be concerned if that doesn't. So I think Tiffany is, she's put down the link of where to review it. There's a link there. There's some sample reviews. She's also, I think, put a link in. So we're making it really easy for you. And then posting on social helps drive traffic to buy the books. So share that you've been a part of this exclusive book launch today. Take a picture of your screen. We're going to have a picture opportunity shortly, and share it with your network so that everybody has access to her book. There's also going to be links in the chat for some book graphics, sample reviews, book graphics, and some examples of social posts. So she's made it very easy for us to all support her in this way today. Throughout our time here today, drop questions in the chat. Marcia will be watching for those questions. We'll answer them. I'm moving through a pretty quick agenda. Don't be afraid to raise your hand through an image or even interrupt me. I can go pretty quickly once I get on a roll. So I'll just pause for one moment. If there's any questions before we start, unmute and let us know. Awesome. All right. Let's kick off by actually talking to the person that we're here to celebrate. Marcia, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So I'm really curious what was behind you writing this book? How did this all start?
Yeah, so many of you know that I've been an angel investor since 2012 when Izzy, also here known as Mr. Marcia on the video, when we moved to Pittsburgh, and we were living in Pittsburgh, and we were invited to an angel investing meeting. And I was just so fascinated at what was going on and what was happening that I was I knew that I wanted to get more involved. Little did I know that we would end up moving from Pittsburgh to New York, and then to Dallas, and then to San Francisco, and then to Charlotte in a 10-year period of time. And I got to see the ecosystem of so many different areas, everything from, places that you wouldn't think there was a lot of innovation like Pittsburgh, all the way to where there is actually a lot of innovation, by the way, all the way to San Francisco and living in Silicon Valley. But I kept getting so frustrated because I would watch these entrepreneurs who had so many great ideas, and I was watching them try to bring their ideas to life. They would try to fundraise, and they would just struggle and struggle and struggle. They didn't know where to start. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know who to talk to. And I thought, this really does have to be easier. So then I'd start to talk to people that I thought, well, these people could be investors. Maybe I'll talk to them, invite them to, come into the club, get involved in angel investing. But I kept hearing over and over again, people say to me, well, I can't do that. I don't have a finance degree. I don't have, billions of dollars. I thought this was only for the rich and well connected. I can't do that. But it turns out that really nowadays anybody can be a part of this, because in 2016, the Securities and Exchange Commission changed the rules, and now anyone can be an investor for as little as $50. So I talk about that a lot in the book. I also talk a lot about, and you're going to hear from Alicia Griffey in a little while, talk about using philanthropic dollars to invest. And I found that especially among women, this is something that's really preferred. So we're going to go into a lot of the details about that and how it all works. So those were really my motivations, because to be honest, I just got frustrated watching all of these entrepreneurs, and I'd want to invest in them, but I was out of money, because really at the Angel Capital Association, and I did see Pat Gouen is on the call. He's the ACA CEO. At the Angel Capital Association, we say that you should only invest about 5 to 10% of your investable assets into alternative assets, which include angel investing. So, yeah, so that is really was my main motivation, just to demystify this whole process.
I love it. It definitely worked for me, and I'll come on that in a minute. But I'm also curious about how long this took. In my mind, I think there's a book within me, and I think a lot of people will say that. It's just easy peasy to write a book, right, Marcia?
Oh, oh no. I never thought I would write a book. I'm a spreadsheet person. You can give me numbers and spreadsheets all day. I would love to play with those. I did not think I could actually write a book, but I met a woman named AJ Harper. Several of you know who she is here on the call. Well, I met her because of heroic public speaking, which is where Sue and I did some training on public speaking. And she's a writer. She's a developmental editor, and she has a workshop that I went through at the beginning of 2023, and it was a 14-week program. And through that, I got outlines and kind of ways to think about how to write the book so that we always put the reader first. And that's how the book was written. So I started in February of 23 and I had it written by the end of August of 23. And that's when I met Naren Ariel, who I see on the call here. And I started the publishing process and learning about what that was all about between hybrid publishing, which is what
Good.
Amplify is, which is Naren's company, and learned about self-publishing, traditional publishing, and all those types of things. And I picked Naren's company. So Naren, maybe you can say a few words about Amplify.
Sure. So first of all, congratulations, Marcia. It's great to be here. One thing you said that I'll reiterate is, and there are a lot of authors on this call, I know writing a book is such a process. And I'm here to tell you that Marcia embraced the process every step of the way. Methodical is the word that comes to mind. She told you about her work with AJ and her cohort. All that was in service of the reader and to improve the manuscript. And with every turn, that's what I saw is an improved book. And so, we're holding this incredible book. It's beautiful, beautiful cover design. And so there's a story behind the cover design. There's a story behind all the graphics and inside the book. And so like every decision, Marcia was right there and thoughtful every step of the way. And it's because she embraced the process is exactly why the book is as impactful as it's already proven to be. So I'm really proud of the work that we've done with Marcia. And now what I like, and I've obviously been on a lot of at a lot of book launch events like this. And so what I always say is it really does take a village to launch a book. And so as friends of Marcia, as colleagues of Marcia, there's some things that we're going to do together to make this book achieve its objective. And we heard Marcia talk about her objective is to share what she learned about this space of investing with other people. And at the end of the day, it's coming from a position of wanting to share what she's learned about this area with others, again, in service of the reader. So at Amplify Publishing, we're just happy to have been along the ride here, and we're just really proud of this book. It's a great book, and make sure you not only buy a copy, but since the ebook is only 99 cents, there's no reason why you can't buy like 10 ebooks, right? Thank you.
Awesome. Marcia, before we move to our next agenda item, I did want to bring up the fact that, and this entertained me because about 3/4 through the year, book's almost ready. You were talking about launch, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I wrote a workbook to go with it. And
That thing.
I loved that because I needed something like that when I started. I try to tell other women about angel investing and why it's important. So do you want to chat a little bit about the workbook real quick? And I know Tiffany's going to drop that link in as well.
Sure. So, yeah, there are about 5 exercises in the book. And then I direct people to go to my website to look for the worksheet. So I have a Halo strategy worksheet. Basically, when I started angel investing, I was like, I had what I call shiny halo syndrome. I had like the shiny object thing, like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Like I would see a company and I would fall in love with them. This happens very often with angel investors. We fall in love with the entrepreneur. We're like, oh my God, so great. Look at that idea. Oh, it's amazing. Right. And so then I wanted to invest in every company I was seeing. I had no strategy whatsoever. I did not like set aside a certain amount of money. I just kind of got to a point where I was like, I'm going to invest in this and then I'm going to invest in this. And I really wish looking back that I had been a little bit more strategic about it, which is kind of funny because I'm a very strategic person, as is Mr. Marcia here on this call, because you should see the two of us try to go to the grocery store. It's like, okay, I'm going to take aisles 2 and 3. You guys take 4. It's like a game, Anyway, so I just had no strategy. And I thought, okay, what do I think people would really need in order to feel comfortable getting involved in this asset class? Well, part of it is a strategy. And so came up with this Halo strategy worksheet. And I thought, okay, well, I want to be able to have the worksheet be fluid. So I didn't want to print it in the book, because once you print something in a book like that, it's like, oh, you can't really change it as easily. So I thought, okay, well, maybe there should be a workbook. So I put together some of the exercises from the book, the worksheet, and some of the information from the book, a little bit, and put it into a workbook. And then I showed it to AJ Harper, who's our, workshop teacher. I think there's several of us here on the call that have been in her workshop. And she was kind of like, and she never ever says anything negative. She's just like, this isn't really workbooky. I was like, oh dear. Okay. So but in like a very short period of time gives me a ton of great ideas. And I go back and I kind of put all those ideas into the workbook. And now the workbook, as of 5 a.m. this morning, is now available on Amazon, and it's 140 pages. I was not expecting that to happen, but it does, it really does help, I think, walk people through, first of all, thinking about your feelings about money, your feelings about what you care about, and where you would like to invest and change. The second part is I really found that people were struggling to understand what is the difference between looking at a company, evaluating a company, and actually deciding about investing in a company. So the second part is showing different companies and they all look, and ways. Oh, we could have people mute. I'm hearing people talking. If you could mute when you come in, that'd be great. So then the third part is really getting started. It's action items. And one of the things I wanted to put in the third part was about how to make a mock portfolio. Like, let's just try it and do it. So the scenario is you have $2,500 of play money and you go on to an equity crowdfunding site like republic.com, and you can put a mock portfolio together, which I thought would be kind of fun. So that's kind of what the workbook has morphed into. So I really think people will enjoy the actual physical holding of a workbook and being able to write in it and go through the exercises.
I love it. I think it's a great addition. I know one of the things that I've told my friends, we're going to kind of get a group together and utilize that workbook to learn, and with the play money, I think that's going to help share how easy, not easy, but how it's important to diversify your investments, especially into this channel. So I think it's going to be a great tool for people. So that's great. So we're going to have different guests pop in and out. I do see angel investor Sue Bevan Baggett. She is calling in from Greece. I think she won the prize for the furthest call in. I'm not sure. Hey Sue, how are you?
Hey, I'm just glad I'm glad the network is working in my Airbnb. It's because I really didn't want to miss this.
Nice job. I know that Marcia has told me just about how helpful you've been with along this journey with her, and been different parts and stages of the book. So do you want to say a few words about either that journey or
Sure.
anything about her book?
Well, actually, I'm one of those people who, I joke that I'm an accidental angel investor. I did not intend to get into this asset class. And if you had asked me 10 years ago that I'd be doing it, I probably would have laughed at you. But once I discovered how much innovation was happening, and, how many innovations we were missing out on because the entrepreneurs were not getting sufficient investment, it, encouraged me to learn more and to get involved. And Marcia was one of my early angel mentors. So I really owe a lot of, the joy that I've gotten out of this whole asset class and working in this innovation space to Marcia, who convinced me that yes, I could do this. In fact, I could go from starting out 1 year earlier to being on an investment committee. And I see some of our other investment committees members. So it's been, it's been great to learn alongside Marcia and several others on this call. And then also it's been a joy to watch Marcia through this whole last couple of years, because I got a chance to see her first developing the TEDx talk, which preceded, the book. And I think through that process, she realized that, she was really onto something different, something people didn't understand about how to drive change by getting behind startups, investing in them or helping them to succeed. And so, yeah, it's been really fun kind of behind the scenes working alongside Marcia as she's gone through the journey from, TEDx to book to workbook, and Show Her the Money movie and all of that. So it's been really fun. And I am so proud of you, Marcia. She has worked super hard to be, audience centric, to, take all this input, how many iterations you've gone through. I am so proud of you to be birthing the book today. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much, Sue. Well, Sue had a huge hand in helping me with editing, going through the book, the workbook. We would talk about it. She was actually the one who came up with the Halo strategy trademark. So yeah, thank you, Sue, for all your help.
Awesome. All right. So I think it feels like it's going to be time for our first game. But before that, if everyone can turn their cameras on, because Tiffany wants to take a picture of everybody on here. Did everyone follow my rules, Tiffany? Can you tell? I can't believe Mr. Marcia followed my rules. He usually ignores me.
There are a few that are not, but I think we have a good enough participation. We can go with
All right.
this.
All right. So
All
I'll
right.
count us down to smiling. 3, 2, 1, smile.
And everyone just hold it for 1 second. And good. All right, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So now back to this game. I know we've got competitive people on the call. So what we're going to do is a game called Quizniac with startups. So we'll have a couple opportunities to play. There will be some prizes along the way, is my understanding. And so what happens is I'm going to go through a series of facts about a particular startup. I'll give a fact, and you have an opportunity to guess what the company is, and you would put your answer in the chat. And Tiffany and Marcia will be watching for those answers. So again, I'll read the first line of information about a company, and if you know what company that is, you put it in the message. And then if no one's guessed, I'll go to the next one and the next one. We'll see how smart our group is, I guess, is what I'm going to say here. Okay, everybody ready to go? Thumbs up. Ready for the quiz? All right. Okay. So it's name this company. Company started in 2014. Okay. That was a little hard.
They're supposed to be hard and then they get easier. So
Okay. All right. Next fact, Priyanka Chopra was an early investor.
we got one guess, Airbnb. No.
Okay. All right. Original investor put
Oh,
in.
we got an answer. We got a winner.
Oh, we got a winner. Good
Fumble.
job.
Yeah, wow. Shilpa, how did you know that? You knew that Priyanka was an investor early?
Oh, I love Priyanka and I follow her and I know everything
Oh,
she does.
good,
And
yeah.
she's a shrewd investor. She's a good investor.
Yeah, yeah. All
So I'm
right,
going to read the
awesome.
facts. I just think the facts are fascinating. Original
Yeah.
investor put in 10 million for 79% of the company. Founder was shut out of previous company and she sued for sexual harassment. Great podcasts about this story everywhere. Founder was the youngest woman to take a company public at 31. And the last fact was started as a dating app, but went on to include finding friends and business connections. And obviously the answer is Bumble. Marcia, you gonna announce what's the
Yeah,
prize
so
for?
Shulpa is the winner. I'm going to write that down, and she gets a signed copy of the workbook. Yay.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Okay, so we've warmed up a little bit using our chat. And so now what we're gonna do, and I gotta switch my view here. We are going to, one of the things that's important that we talked about is oh, sorry, I went ahead too far. Hang on one second. So we've had some people who have read the book in advance. Like I said, there's some of us that got this a little bit ahead of time. And so even though the book just released today, for those of you that have read the book, why don't you give us a couple sentences in the chat of your biggest takeaways? And if you haven't read the book yet, if you hadn't been the lucky ones to be able to read it ahead of time, just write in a couple notes about what you're looking forward to learning. So again, if you've read it, a couple sentences about your biggest takeaways. And then if you haven't read it, what are you most looking forward to for reading? So I'll give you just a minute or two here to fill in some blanks. Marcia, we're staying on task pretty well for your schedule.
No, it's good.
Let's see how the chat's looking. Excellent.
So while people are finishing that up, we do have Pat Guin on the phone from the Angel Capital Association. Maybe Pat, if you could unmute, say a few words.
Yeah, so it's really a privilege for me to be here today for this milestone event because it's been 5+ years that Marcia and I have interacted almost on a daily basis. So I remember the first day she came and said, "Hey, I'm going to write a book." And I've probably heard that statement from, I'll say, 100 or so people. And usually, it's followed by, "Yeah, I just got to find a free weekend and then I'm going to start writing." But as has already been described, first thing she did is sign up for a workshop. 14 weeks. And I remember her going through that and kind of the thoughts coming to gel and to kind of tell this story. And then one day she said, "Hey, would you mind, kind of checking out what I've got so far and giving it a look over?" I said, "Sure." 210 pages later, we had this wonderful book. And just like everything she does, I mean, she put her heart into it. It could not be from a more sincere position and for all of the right reasons. So, that was kind of the first part of it. And then as we heard, she said, "Well, gee, I don't know if the book itself is enough. Let's do a workbook. Would you take a look at that?" And again, 140 pages later. So there is just a tremendous amount of really valuable content here that I think is presented from that unique perspective, because it's about doing good in the end. But, as Marcia said, kind of demystifying the field of angel investing, that I think it's a good read for anybody, even if you're not really interested in being an angel investor. It gives you a perspective that you're not going to get anywhere else. So I hope that it gets the attention that it deserves out there. And Marcia, thank you so much for putting it all together in such a coherent way.
Thanks, Pat. Yes, Pat's right. We've been working on a lot of stuff together for the Angel Capital Association for the last 5 years, and we appreciate all the work that Pat's done to get this association to where it is today. So thanks, Pat. All right.
Right. Okay, so I think what we're going to do now is we're going to be hearing from some behind the scenes information from the people whose stories are in the book that you have read or you will read about. So our next guest is Tricia Compass Markham. Tricia's entire story from starting her company to the exit is featured in the book starting on page 137. So I'm going to turn it over to Marcia so she and Tricia can tell a little bit more behind the scenes about the day one response story.
Great. Thank you, Tricia. I'm happy that you're here. I know that you're in the middle of some kind of a conference or something in LA, so I pulled you out of what you were doing. But I just think that your story is so important. I wanted to tell the story about day one because it really shows the journey that an entrepreneur goes through in a very realistic way. And even though the end result of that journey with that particular company didn't end how we all would have hoped, it really does give a lot of context and shows a lot of really good examples. And then what you went on to do with all that knowledge and how many other companies have been helped because of it is another reason that we call it doing good while doing well, because not every company is going to be a home run. But what you learn along the way and the things that you can do with that knowledge in order to help other companies is a big deal. So, Trisha, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what day one was and how you kind of came up with the idea?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Marcia. And I see a lot of familiar faces. So appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about a portion of my journey. So let's see. So I connected with Marcia in 2012. Prior to that, I was a first-time technical founder that was really inspired by clean drinking water and the challenges that a lot of people faced both internationally and in our own community here in the US. And so I developed and started a company, Day One Response, that was focused on water treatment for disaster relief and for vulnerable communities. And started that from my university research. I was studying civil and environmental engineering, and just was really all consumed with the challenge and the opportunity. And it was right around 2004, 2005 when the Southeast Asian tsunami happened, as well as Hurricane Katrina here in the US. So the problem was evident, wanted to dive in, had no idea I was going to start a company, but with some great support and as being kind of a risk adverse engineering student at the time, was kind of pushed into it and saw the opportunity for that. Yeah, and then kind of fast forward from there, started to develop it. The company started to get some early pilots. It was a hard tech solution, so a long development cycle, and then started to pursue angel investment financing and met Marcia in 2012 via Golden Seeds, and had a number of, maybe not as much as Pat for 5 years daily call, but Marcia was there, always telling me you can do hard things, because the life is ups and downs, ups and downs.
Yes, you can do hard things. That became our mantra even past day one, right? So
Okay.
I thought it was so fascinating what the bag could actually do. So maybe just like kind of explain a little bit about how it was different.
Sure. Yeah. So it was a family-sized water treatment device that held 2.5 gallons of water. It's 10 liters of water. You can imagine like an oversized Camelback bladder that allowed you to collect, treat, transport, and store water all in a single unit. And visually, you could see the water being treated, which was really important working with many different communities and populations across the world. What we discovered was, yeah, you had to make it work and provide clean drinking water, but we were really solving a logistics problem. Could we get a product into these remote communities in a short, efficient amount of time, and make sure it wasn't too costly to our customers and partners? But yeah, we tried to make it really simple. Worked, had a great partnership with Procter and Gamble with the chemical, and really dove into the manufacturing and had multiple suppliers around the world. And then you can imagine that was quite a challenge in the inventory. Can we get product to a remote community, even here in the US, in a timely, efficient way? When were they going to purchase the whole thing? So it really was pulled out of my technical focus into, as many of you know, working with many founders, being founders yourselves, into the business model, the sales cycle. Like, could we make this happen? Could we actually provide a solution? And we were able to do it. But we faced a ton of challenges along the way too.
Yes, a ton of challenges, mainly the sales cycle. So
Yes.
anytime an entrepreneur comes to me and they say, oh, you know what, we're going to sell into, and then you just fill in the blank of some big behemoth, like a hospital or school systems or INGOs, NGOs, which is what we were trying to do with day one. It's really, really, really hard. So maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So it's, complex sales, selling to these large organizations, as you said, Marcia, doesn't whatever ones they are. And I think as you talk to an entrepreneur, if they start to understand like the nuances behind it, then you're like, okay, I think they're getting it. Who do they sell to? Who within the organization? What's the length of that time? The decision making. What we found was working primarily with relief organizations distributed around the world, their decision making process changed through the course of our time. It used to all be decisions were made at headquarter level, and then they'd tell the field teams what to do. And that changed. The field teams started to make those decisions. So we, as a company based in California, had to start developing relationships with field teams in Philippines, in Nepal, in Haiti, and then they would change, right? They were sent to different parts of disasters or different events that were happening across the world. So we had to get multiple people, multiple decision makers, get those champions within. We were a small team, so we had to start to really develop those relationships. I mean, it was through our actually investors and board members that we started to get those right champions within that very nuance in organizations. But it was not something we could do overnight.
Right. So, all right. So we've already told the end of the story, which is that day one didn't quite make it. But we really knew, though, especially looking back, you and I have talked recently about how we don't really think the company would have made it through COVID, which a lot of early stage and startup companies did not. So talk about what it was like to make the decision to wind down the company, and then how did you know that that was like the right decision at the time? And then what would have happened if the company would have still been in existence during COVID?
Yeah, so I think, as we had our ups and downs, we were showing sales, and then we had in 2017, we had this year that we sold out of all of our product. We were starting to miss sales because we didn't have enough product to fulfill, and that became a huge challenge, right? Good year, and then boom, okay, we saw all these problems with inventory management. Could we deliver on time? And they wanted on time 24 hours, 48 hours. We couldn't move our supply chain that quickly. We tried to look at different business models. So we kept with it for another 2 years, and we just like, hey, we had, great group of investors, but we can't keep going back to these investors. We needed to think a little bit differently. They were still very supportive. And so we thought, okay, we're sort of running out of steam here. We looked at some potential for acquisition that would not have been a return for our investors, but to keep the brand going. We had some really great opportunities moving forward, but eventually it's like, hey, we can't keep sustaining this. So decided at the beginning of 2019, we need to close it. We need to try to, keep the partnerships and relationships as best we could and do it the right way. It took us a year to close it. So March 2020, we closed. Nothing to do with the pandemic or anything like that, but it took a year to do that. And then it was just, what do you do next? As a startup founder, first time founder, what expertise do I have to give? And I wasn't going to start another company. I was pretty burned out from that. But I don't know if we would have survived the pandemic for just the inventory management and just
Right.
with the world kind of locking down. I don't. So maybe in some ways we were right before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then tell us what you've been doing since day one, because I just love how the stories come full circle.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I had no idea what to do, and it kind of went out into the wilderness. Just took a break. Had two young kids. Was a mom for focused on being a mom, and kept the relationship going with Marcia, with some other board members, with advisors, and just sort of, what should I do? What should I do? And a couple of them said, hey, have you ever thought about teaching? Like, you have a great one deep experience, but have you ever thought about helping other entrepreneurs? So kind of a story that has come full circle. One of our early investors in Day One Response, before I met Marcia, was VentureWell. And if any of you are familiar with VentureWell, I work at VentureWell now, is a nonprofit organization that supports entrepreneurs, primarily technical founders in their journeys in discovering and realizing the impact they can make. So just reached out to our investor contact, Christina Tamer, who'd been with us for 5 years. And she said, hey, we're building our team, love to have you on, with a kind of the entrepreneurial mindset. So gave it a shot, and it's been 3 years with VentureWell, and I love it. Get to be part of the entrepreneur's journey, just a little piece of it. Get to work with Marcia, get to work with Sue, and just like it's phenomenal. It kind of hits those buttons for me But I also can take a moment at the end of the day to take a breather, which
Yeah.
maybe wasn't always the case for day one. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, I have to hand it to you, Trisha. You've done such a great job inspiring so many other entrepreneurs and helping them with to basically not make some of the same mistakes that were made
Yeah.
with day one, and not that you even know. I mean, most of the time when you're even as investors, we see different things, we learn along the way, but it's just every company's different, every situation's different, and it's all a learning experience. And Trisha has been so gracious because we have these programs through VentureWell called Aspire, where we help med tech and climate tech companies they're trying to solve big problems. And we help them through an accelerator program. I'm a mentor, Sue's a mentor. And unfortunately, Trisha, in a lot of cases, has to relive day one every time we do it. So I really have to hand it to you for doing that and really helping these companies, because we have seen some incredible companies come through, and I don't know that they would have had then the structure or the strategic angle to be able to move forward. So thank you, Trisha,
Yeah.
for that.
I just want to say, Marcia, real quick, I appreciate you being a believer in many people's journeys, but a believer, that's something I learned. You got to find those believers really early. So I just want to thank you for that. And thanks for keeping, believing in me even post my entrepreneurial journey. So thank you for everything you've done for everybody.
Oh, thanks, Trisha. You can read the entire story of Trisha's journey in the book, starting on page 137. And before we go on to the next thing, we have another podcast guest, a former podcast guest, but recently, it was just like a week ago, that Cheryl Cullen was on the podcast and told us all about her company, Play Money. So I'm going to ask her just to tell us a little bit about what Play Money is, because from what you told me on the podcast episode, it's like Instagram meets angel investing.
It is. Thank you so much for letting me talk. Like, super surprised. I love this. My name is Cheryl Kelland. I'm a 3-time venture-backed founder, 3-time Ironman, 4-time mom, sort of do all the things. My company, Play Money, is exactly what Marcia says. It's Instagram meets AngelList. It allows any accredited investor to build their dream startup portfolio without making investing a full-time job. Sometimes as a founder, this is the 3rd time doing this, you have a moment of luck in the market. And I think we have a moment of luck in the market because of what Catherine's doing with the Show Her the Money movie, what's happening with Marcia and her book. All of these things are this amazing, motivating call to action that's coming at a perfect time for new check writers to enter the market. My company, Play Money, lets you put that energy into action and actually start writing checks. The company is the output of, again, my 12 years as a venture-backed founder, right? My first startup, we were raising money back in the day, where as a female founder, to get a meeting on Sand Hill Road, you first had to answer the question, well, did you pitch Golden Seeds yet? And asked sort of just like that. We're also one of the first companies to raise on AngelList back in the day when Naval used to send out an email on Sundays pimping his favorite companies, back before it was just a transaction site. So I've seen the market evolve over 12 years, and it's so exciting where we are now, with more new check writers getting into the space and a more diverse range of founders solving a more diverse range of problems coming into the space. And what struck me as a active angel, I think I have 50 individual investments in my portfolio now, was that the problem has shifted from a transaction problem to a matching problem. And the right investors finding the right founders in an efficient way. And that has to happen for us as individual angels, and it has to happen for emerging fund managers who want to bring the capital and just horsepower of high value angels to their cap tables. So you should definitely check out my company. It's really cool. It's really fun. The deals on there are super top notch. They've all been vetted by just really inspiring emerging fund managers, really inspiring angel groups. but I'm just excited to be here and be here in this moment. And hopefully we can help channel some of this energy and all of your check writing and all of you reaching out to your friends and saying, hey, like first check matters. First check calls game. You get to decide what problems get solved and who gets to solve them. And those tiny, even the tiny small checks add up and make a huge difference. So I love being part of this ecosystem, and I hope we can play a unique role to put a whole boatload of money in motion. Look, I didn't even say a cuss word then. That was really hard for me. A boatload. I put $1 billion freaking dollars in motion for the next gen of founders and make it really easy and fun.
I love that. Thanks,
So,
Cheryl.
I
Thanks for
got for
telling
ya.
everybody about Let's Play Money.
And I'm gonna plug the site in the chat and
Yeah, Tiffany already dropped
unapologetically.
the link in the chat for you. So, yep. Perfect. All right, Cynthia, back over to you.
All right, it's promo time, meaning what are we going to do to help promote Marcia? So just a reminder, it's launch day if you haven't, heard that loud and clear or you're just joining us. So it's really important that we as a group start driving traffic to the book on all platforms. So today, the price of the ebook is 99 cents for the whole day. So encourage everybody you know in your network to buy. Tiffany is going to repost the link to Amazon in the chat. Reviews are so important today and moving, and even after launch day, but all of that drives traffic. It helps with the algorithm on Amazon to make it accessible to more people. So it's really important to start that right now. A 5-star review is always appreciated. I don't know why you wouldn't do a 5-star review, in my opinion. Goodreads is also a place that you can put a review. Tiffany, if she hasn't done it already, will repost the link to write a review on Amazon. We also have samples, like a Word doc of sample reviews that Marcia's made. So there's a link for that as well. And then posting on any of your socials will also help drive traffic to buy the book. So especially on a day like today when it's 99 cents and we just want to make it accessible to all. So Tiffany, I think, is putting the link in for how it can help us post on social with graphics and copy. I mean, doing all the work for us, which I prefer in life. So let's take advantage of that and really drive traffic.
And it is making a difference because I just refreshed my page on Amazon, and first we were #1 in personal finance, which was huge. Then it was #1 in crowdfunding, but we just hit #1 in women in business. That was the biggest category I picked, and you had to have like hundreds of sales in order to get in to be #1 in that category. So thank you, everybody. It's working. It's working. It's working.
Yay! Love it, love it.
And
Okay.
Catherine's asking, is it only on Amazon? No, it is not. It is on bookshop.org, barnesandnoble.com. So you can go, if you go to my website, you can hit all the links. Tiffany will put my website in the chat. Tiffany, by the way, helped design my website and updates it all the time, and she's awesome. So shout out to her. And okay, so what's next, Cynthia?
Well, we're gonna play a game again because
Oh,
people
playing
want
a game.
prizes. Okay, so again, if you joined us after we played the last game, I'm gonna remind you what we're playing. So we're playing Name the Startup. So I'm gonna give clues to the group, hardest to easiest. And when you think you know the answer, you put it into the chat. And Marcia and Tiffany are watching for answers. No shouting the answers. I don't think anyone has because everybody's on mute, but I thought I'd throw that in there. And then the first one who guesses the company correctly in the chat will win a prize. All right. I'm going to start with the first clue. This company was founded by an entrepreneur who initially sold fax machines door to door before creating her product.
Oh, who guessed Banks right away? Oh my gosh. You guys are so fast.
Look at
So
that.
fast. Karen and Alicia and Beth and Nancy all at the same time. Look at that.
Very
I will
nice.
have to make sure I give them all a prize.
All right. So I'm going to run through the other facts because I love them.
I didn't realize
This
that
company
people would know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an inspiring for those who want to start a company. This company's first office was a spare room in her apartment with red backdrops for products photographed on the kitchen floor. Oprah Winfrey named this product one of her favorite things in 2000, and that helped skyrocket popularity. The brand name was chosen partly because the founder believed that names with a K sounds were successful, following the footsteps of brands like Coca-Cola. The founder had no formal training in fashion or business, but relied on $5,000 in savings and self-teaching to launch the brand. So I just think it's amazing what Sarah Blakely has done with this company.
Yes, amazing.
All right.
All right.
Okay, now we are ready for our next guest. Alicia Griffey is our next guest, and Marcia and Alicia will be telling us about using philanthropic dollars to invest in for-profit companies. Alicia's story starts on page 43. Take it away, Marcia.
All right. Well, first of all, I was super excited because Alicia and I haven't seen each other and I don't know how long, probably before COVID. And last week I got to see her. I know. And last week I got to see her in Boston. We had a ACA women's event and it was fabulous. We had lots of women gathering together. We watched a screening of Show Her the Money, and we also had a whole investor day with lots of great speakers and great conversation. So I was excited that you were there with us. So, Alicia, I would love for you to tell us about, first of all, using philanthropic money to invest in for-profit companies is something most people don't think about. So start off by telling us a little bit about that and tell us how you started Daintree.
Sure. So I'm a startup operator turned investor. Was kind of, either COO or CFO of 3 different startups, mostly in the clean energy space. So it kind of sounds somewhat similar to Cheryl's background in that I'd experienced the startup world. I kind of had felt the pains of raising money and taking different kinds of capital. And after a decade of doing that, I decided I wanted to move to the investor side of the table. But I also knew that I wanted to do things differently than typical investors, because I thought if I'm just another check chasing the same investment criteria as everyone else, it's not gonna turn the dial. So my specific area of interest was on female and BIPOC founders, because the statistics are just, horrific. If you think about the flow of particularly venture capital, less than 3% of venture capital goes to women-led companies. And I heard that statistic and I thought, we're doing something wrong, because I know women have more than 3% of the best new business ideas. So that for me was why I started Daintree, was to kind of focus not just on underrepresented founders, but was also to do it in a different and kind way, which for Daintree is through working capital loans. We help these companies grow. But I know your question is more about, so how are we harnessing philanthropic capital? Because that is something, and Marcia, as you mentioned, most people don't even realize you can do. And I think it is a particularly interesting way for new angel investors to start to participate and get into this game. So the basic idea is this. Most people think of philanthropic capital as capital that has to go to a 501c3. And while that is certainly the easiest, more straightforward thing to do with your capital, there are nonprofits that are set up. I can think of 2 in particular, and I'll put their information in the chat, that are recognizing that there are problems in this world that could be solved, or we could make significant progress against, through investing in businesses that address those problems. So 2 things in particular. One is closing the racial and gender wealth gap. That there is a philanthropic mission there. And there are nonprofits there is one nonprofit in particular that has been set up to help close the racial and gender wealth gap by investing in businesses that are run by women and people of color. So that's kind of option 1. And then 2, there's another one that is focused on climate change, right? That climate change is a huge problem of our time. There's a lot of nonprofits that are trying to address it, but there also are some for-profit companies that are building technologies and products and services that are trying to address climate change. So the 2 examples I'm most familiar with are either if you're interested in investing in a business run by a woman or a person of color, or if you're interested in climate change as kind of investment areas, there are specific nonprofits that have been set up to help you do that. So, and I'm happy to kind of explain a little bit more up in the mechanics if that's helpful.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you do that?
Okay. So I'll give this example. One of these nonprofits, Inspire Access, it is a 501c3. It has been sanctioned by the IRS to address this issue of closing the racial and gender wealth gap. And you can take your money, either that is already deemed philanthropic, meaning it might be sitting in a donor advised fund, which, by the way, there's 250 billion with a B, billion dollars currently sitting in donor advised funds unallocated to nonprofits, meaning it's sitting in a money market, it's sitting in a Fidelity index fund, it is making fees for bankers in traditional investments, and it's just sitting there because someone has said, in the future, I want to donate that money. But right now it's just sitting there. So Inspire Access is a nonprofit that was set up to tap into that money and say, wait a second, guys, if you haven't figured out how you want to donate all that money over the next 5-10 years, how about you use some of that to move over here into these investments that fall under our mission area, which in the case of Inspire Access is female founders and founders of color. If there's a business that is run by an underrepresented founder and you want to invest in that business, you can take money from your donor advised fund. You move it to Inspire Access as a grant to a 501c3. So your donor advised fund says, no problem. Inspire Access is a 501c3. We're going to move it over there. And then you have a side letter with this nonprofit, Inspire Access, that says, I'm moving this money to you because I want you to invest it on my behalf in this specific company. And then Inspire Access moves that money over to whatever the investment is, as long as it fits with their mission of underrepresented founders. And it could be sitting there in a safe note. It could be sitting there in direct equity investment. It could be a loan that you've structured to them. It could be any kind of investment. The only thing that's really different is when that business hopefully succeeds and the safe note gets converted to equity, or the equity gets converted to cash because there's an exit, or the loan gets repaid, the money comes back to the nonprofit. And then the nonprofit picks up the phone and calls you and says, hey, Marcia, remember that investment you made? Well, it just returned all of the money. And we now have X amount of money sitting in your account. What would you like us to do with this? We can either make another investment with it, or it could go back to your donor advised fund, or it can go to the 501c3 of your choosing. The only thing it cannot do is go back to you as an individual, because you've already gotten the tax benefit. So using Marcia as an example, if that money was coming from her DAF, it could go back to her DAF, but it can't go to her as an individual. So it's a little bit different in that it's a way to tap into money that is mentally in a different pocketbook, right? Some people might think of investing only with their cash from their checking account. But if you have money that's sitting in a donor advised fund, or if you're looking for a tax write-off for a certain year, maybe you had an exit yourself or some other event that you're trying to offset, you could send money to one of these nonprofits, get the tax write-off that year, do an investment through that nonprofit, and then when the returns come back, you just have to keep it on that side of the tax line, donate it at that point, or do another investment. So does that make sense, Marcia? Other things I should clarify?
No, that was great. And then maybe just talk a little bit about how Daintree fits into the whole thing.
Sure. So Daintree started, I used my own capital. I'm doing these small working capital loans to underrepresented founders. I did a number of loans, basically reached the point where the model was working and it made sense to raise money traditionally. And I decided I did not want to raise a traditional 2 and 20 fund. And the reason was because it was going to pull me right out of the part of the market where I was having impact. I'm writing small checks. I'm writing $50,000, $75,000 checks to early stage companies that are growing, but maybe not at the hyper rates that traditional equity investors look for. And so a traditional investor would look at this and say, Alicia, you're not making enough money on a $50,000 loan. Like, why are you wasting your time on a $50,000 loan? And my answer is because these founders are a worthy credit investment and they are repaying their loans, and these businesses are growing. And we're having huge impact seeing more women and people of color growing their businesses and accessing traditional capital. That's why I'm doing it. But traditional LPs are like, yeah, I just want to, show me the money. So I decided to raise money partnering with a nonprofit, tapping into some of this philanthropic capital in order to bring more money to the fight, funding these underrepresented founders, but doing it through philanthropic capital that's coming in through one of these nonprofit partners. And basically what we've created is what we call the 3-year impact note, where someone can take money that's sitting in their DAF, they lend it basically to over to Daintree through this nonprofit. We spend 3 years doing a whole bunch of these loans to underrepresented founders, and we kick back 3% a year to the investor through the nonprofit. And at the end of the 3 years, they can either pull the principal back to their DAF and continue doing their giving, or they can continue to roll it forward in more investment. So it has become the funding strategy for my for-profit business because it's more patient capital and there's more people kind of aligned with my focus area and my area of investment.
Yeah, I love this so much because I was so careful when I wrote my speech for TEDx Charlotte, when I wrote the book. The last thing that I want is for people to think that I'm anti-donating to charity, because that is like the farthest thing from the truth. I really believe that we need to help these nonprofits get more money so they can do better things and they can, have more of an impact. But if we say that that we think that, curing cancer, climate change, all those types of things are going to happen by nonprofits, well, then I think we're just fooling ourselves. So we need to have like a combination. There needs to be for-profit work, nonprofit work. And what I love so much about this is that we can take philanthropic dollars and actually, well, the idea here is to multiply those dollars so that they can go back and help even more nonprofit companies, help for-profit companies, and it can all start to work together. And I know just from talking to people over the last 12 years, as I talk to people and they would say, well, I just don't know if this is for me. I think this is only for rich people. I don't really know enough about this. And especially with women, as soon as I would start to talk about, well, you could write a philanthropic check and then use that money in the meantime, because that money does usually go into the stock market or a mutual fund or something like that as it's waiting to be donated if it's sitting in a donor advised fund. And as Alicia said, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars that are sitting in donor advised funds, and they are literally not doing anything that could actually help to get us farther along and where we would want to be. So I'm a super fan of this. I don't think enough people know about it. I've actually had a couple people who got the book early, read it, who are already angel investors and have totally drank the Kool-Aid. And they say to me, I had no idea that you could invest with philanthropic dollars. It's just something that hasn't been talked about that much. And we just don't, we just don't know enough about it, or we don't talk enough about it. So Alicia, I love what you're doing. I love what Inspire Access does.
I'll drop their information in the chat too, so people have it.
Yeah, that would be great. Leah Brickman and Patrice, her mother, Patrice Brickman, were on the podcast also. Alicia has also been a guest on the podcast. And Tiffany is currently right now putting together a, what do you call that? Like playlists for all of the different things. So there will be a page coming soon this week on our website, which will show all of the different podcast episodes that relate to certain things, because we're almost at 100 episodes now. I think I'm going to be recording 100 episodes in, or episode number 100 in the next couple weeks. So, and by Thursday, when we drop the latest episode, we'll be at 20,000 downloads. So that's huge. That was always my goal. Like, what do I have to do to get to 20,000 downloads? We have to record a lot of episodes. But we're getting a lot more traction. More people are finding the podcast and then saying to me, hey, I found this. I listened to one episode and then I went back and listened to a lot of the episodes. So that's pretty exciting. And I will just mention one other thing about the podcast. We do have Kendrick Wynn is going to be on this Thursday. He's the CEO of Republic.com. I'm a huge fan of Republic.com. It's an equity crowdfunding site. I think it's super easy to use and I love the interface. And it took me about a year to find him, stalk him, and get him to agree to come on the podcast. So that's going to be fun that we'll have him talking about it. And he did say one thing that was super, super interesting. And I'll just give you guys a sneak peek. He said that the average amount of time that somebody takes from going on to, onto the site and looking at a certain company to invest in and actually making the investment is less than 1 minute. So people are not spending a lot of time doing diligence when they're doing equity crowdfunding, which I think is really fascinating. But anyway, he talks a lot about that and what all that means and how Republic has gone much, much farther above and beyond than what the Securities and Exchange Commission asks for so that they can be sure that people really know about what they're doing when they invest in a company. So lots of really cool and interesting ways that we're democratizing investing in early stage companies and getting more people involved. So Alicia, thank you for what you're doing. I mean, the work at Daintree, I know is a lot, and you've really worked so hard these last couple years, but I really start to see the momentum building. And I love that you've partnered with Leah and Patrice at Inspire Access along with others. And I just really can't thank you enough for all your hard work.
Well, thank you for sharing this story, because I think the biggest challenge we have right now in terms of addressing some big issues we have, whether it's climate change or gender, racial wealth gap, is that people don't understand that there's these tools out there. So I appreciate that you're helping us educate folks about this even being an option as a way to invest. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Excellent.
Right.
Well, and since we've been having such great information about your podcast and we've been talking about reviews, I'll just throw in here that it would be also wonderful to do reviews on Marcia's podcast. So if Tiffany hasn't done it already, she's dropping links to be able to review the podcast on Apple and review it on Spotify. Again, all of this helps get this education, and the better we expose this messaging and the options that those have in investing is just better for our world. So if you have a chance, also drop reviews for the podcast. All right, it's time for game 3. And again, I'm going to start in theory with the hardest clues.
In theory, I know, seriously. In theory, apparently I'm really bad at making up this game.
I'm glad you took accountability for that, Marcia. I'm just the MC. No, we'll start with the hardest clues and get into the easiest and see who is going to be the winner on this game. All right. So our first clue about this company. This company was initially funded through a Kickstarter campaign in 2013, where it exceeded its goal by raising over $300,000. Oh, all right.
Okay.
Clue number 2. The founder previously worked as an executive at Barnes & Noble, where he gained experience in managing digital products and membership programs.
Oh, good guess, Alicia, but no.
All right. Third clue. The co-founders initially pitched the idea to venture capitalists who rejected it multiple times, doubting the market demand for the product. Okay, you did a good job on this one, Marcia.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, ring. No, close. No.
The
Not really close.
founder's wife was one of the initial beta testers of the product and provided feedback that influenced its final design and features.
Audible Canva. No.
Good guesses.
Ooh, look at me. Look at me.
We're getting down there. The brand
know.
is known
We
for
work
creating a strong community around its users who are motivated by leaderboards and instructor shout outs during classes.
Oh, come on.
That's
Peloton.
Yay.
I think Alicia got that one first. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And excellent. I love this fact. The company faced early skepticism, with potential investors questioning whether people would pay a premium for exercise equipment with a subscription model. Well, that was All right. Okay.
Well, that was fun.
Very good, everybody. And do you want to announce your prize?
Oh, yes. Alicia, especially since you got 2, I have these cute little wine tumblers that I made that say, "What's your Halo strategy?" on it. So I'm going to send you one. Woohoo.
Job. All right, we are ready for our next guest. Martha Carlin is the next guest. Marcia and Martha will be telling us about how Martha is single-handedly going to cure Parkinson's disease. Martha's story starts on page 52 of the book. And you can take it away, Marcia.
All right. Martha, I'm so excited to see you. Thank you for being here. Your story is so important. When I was thinking as I was writing the book about what is it that I really care about, when I say you're going to get emotional rewards and potentially financial rewards, what are the things that I really care about? And your company checks every single box. You know, we want to be able to feel good about the companies that they're investing in. We want them to be able to have some type of an impact. We want them to be able to pay it forward. We want them to be able to create jobs. I mean, your company has really done all of those things, but your story is so inspiring because of your husband's situation, being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. At this point, it has to be what, like 20 years ago? Oh, wait, you're on mute. Oh.
22 years ago.
22 years ago. Wow. And so tell us how this got started, because now I just feel like this, we'll kind of go to the end, which is where Martha created a probiotic, and we'll put the link in the chat, which I just think is super amazing. Me and Mr. Marcia and my whole family takes this probiotic because I think it's so amazing. But tell us a little bit about your journey and how you are, I believe, single-handedly going to cure Parkinson's disease.
So so my husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2002 when he was just 44. And my background was in accounting, finance, and business operations. And I had been trained by Arthur Anderson, actually, in something called transaction flow review, which is how you would identify risk in a business by doing a giant flow chart and mapping out everything going through the system to identify those potential breakpoints that could be a problem. And also, I was trained as an auditor. Never believe anything that you are told. Examine the evidence for yourself, and do the research to determine whether or not something's a fact. Excuse me. And so when John was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I kind of took that mindset of the auditor, don't take what you've been told at face value, and look at the system. So I started to study science. And over the course of these past 22 years, about 10 years in, 12 years in, 2014, I read a book called Missing Microbes by Dr. Martin Blazer that was talking about the impact of the overuse of antibiotics in medicine and also in in our food supply, and how that was driving all these chronic diseases. And to me, it really resonated with the accounting background, as the gut being your general ledger that could sort of keep track of all these things. And so about 6 months later, the first paper came out that showed you could identify the two primary types of Parkinson's. There's two different types of it, by the gut bacteria. And I was like, that's it. That was my eureka moment. And I quit my job and started funding research at the University of Chicago. And, people thought I was kind of crazy because I had a very lucrative job and a lot of money in the bank. And 6 months later, after meeting a researcher at the University of Chicago and another one of my co-founders, I founded the Bio Collective to look not only at Parkinson's, but really across the population at the human microbiome by collecting poop. And I was pitching a story to investors where I had golden coins flying out of the poop. And, people thought I was crazy. I said, you can sell an ounce of a stool for more than an ounce of gold, and people weren't buying it. But if you've seen the recent episode on Netflix about your health and the gut, they actually talk about stools being more valuable than gold. And along the way, we pivoted many times, but we collected a large bank of samples and then built a data set around that so we could start to see across the population, what are these problems in the gut, and what functions have we lost. And then kind of, I would say, almost by happenstance at a Parkinson's meeting, I saw some research on a sugar alcohol that could stop the aggregation of the proteins involved in Parkinson's. And I came back and bought a sorry, my husband's phone is ringing. Bought a book on mannitol and started to study that, and saw that there were probiotic organisms that actually convert glucose and fructose into mannitol. And I thought, well, maybe I could try to build a system of bacteria and put them back in the body to restore health. And tried it on my husband. At the time, he was walking with a cane, and we could see the markers for Parkinson's in his microbiome. And he started taking it, stopped walking with a cane, and we could see his microbiome moving back closer and closer to the healthy human microbiome. And at the time, we were still very focused on fecal sample collection. We had a $1.2 million NIH grant. And so I wasn't really focused on so much being a consumer product company. But then COVID came around, and we decided it was a bit risky to be doing what we were doing. And it really changed the dynamics of a lot of things. And so we actually took our economic injury disaster loan funds and launched the BiotiQuest brand of our probiotics, and then went on to, because of the way that it was changing sugar metabolism, we actually decided to do a clinical trial in diabetes, because that has a lot clearer endpoint measurements than Parkinson's disease. And so in 2022, we did a clinical trial, a double-blind clinical trial in diabetes with some really amazing results. And we have a paper out on that and another publication coming out where we've shown a mechanism of action that actually applies beyond diabetes into the reason why it helped my husband with Parkinson's, and it would also help with depression and really anything that's involved with an inflammatory response in the body. So it's been sort of a crazy ride. And, I was very fortunate to have an angel investor and family office that I had a long-term relationship with, who has stuck with me, because it's been almost 10 years. And, we've turned the corner this year to profitability. And, I tell people who are looking to start a business, it's not for the faint of heart. I used up all my capital of all those years living without a salary for a pretty long time to make this happen. And on the Parkinson's side of things, I actually put in place a small nonprofit and I've had a few people with Parkinson's who have helped fund some of the specific Parkinson's microbiome research over the years. And we're now planning a meeting on this little island where in Wisconsin, where it will be 40 people, patients, physicians, and researchers who are not necessarily Parkinson's people, thinking completely outside the box with our kind of starting premise is, what if everything we think we know about Parkinson's is actually wrong? And that's what I've spent 22 years studying and learning to understand, because the path to a cure is through understanding what's actually happening instead of just targeting drugs for symptoms. So that's my story.
Martha, you are amazing. You're an amazing human. I mean, this is a good example of, if somebody's thinking, well, I can't make a difference. I don't know, I'm just one person. I can't really make a difference. Martha Carlin is making a difference in Parkinson's. And we met basically when she was fundraising, but we bonded because many of you know that my mom passed from ALS, and ALS, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's are very similar neurodegenerative diseases. And so I was just fascinated by everything that was pretty much anything and everything that's ever come out of Martha's mouth, because she's done so much research. She's read just hundreds, if not thousands, of white papers. She is not a scientist, and she has turned herself into what we call a citizen scientist, because she has just done so much amazing work in this area and created this probiotic. Just real quickly though, tell us what's different from your probiotic than like pretty much all of the other ones that are out there that you might get at Whole Foods or CVS or something like that.
Well, so most of the probiotics on the market are getting their raw material strains from just 3 suppliers. So there's 3 major suppliers that control that market. There's a very limited availability of the strains, so not much diversity. So we actually built a bank of our own strains and did the research and work on those to bring them to market. So in part, the difference is diversity in strains. But the other really unique thing about us is that, we looked at microbes just like this is a community. We're trying to build a community to support women entrepreneurs. Well, we're building a community to have the right kind of output in your gut. And to do that, you need to understand how they play together. And do you have the right players on your team? And so we actually built a computational model that allows us to put the genetics of strains of bacteria together and run these programs for 8, 10, 12 hours and see what they're using and producing and how they're helping each other, so that we can make a product that actually does what we say it's going to do. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we still have Alicia and Martha here on the call. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? Either of them, or really questions about anything? Angela?
Well, I was just looking at our site, but how else can we support? Are you doing more research, or I didn't look at the site, it was just probiotics, but are there other things that we can do to support, or is it all on your website?
It's
My
not
father
on the
has
website.
Parkinson's. Okay.
Yeah. Actually,
my father has Parkinson's, so.
I'm sorry,
My father has Parkinson's. He's still doing well, but I'm the eldest daughter, doing all the research, making him take his probiotics and his fish oil and doing all the research. So yeah, however I can support or find out more information, I'd love to.
So I have a personal blog called Martha's Quest.
Okay.
And Martha's Quest blog is really all about Parkinson's and the microbiome, but also alternative therapies and, looking at Parkinson's from different aspects. So there's a lot there. And I do have a small nonprofit that I don't really publicize, but if you're interested in that, I can tell you about that, because part of what we're doing is this meeting in May, and we are looking at doing a clinical trial in Parkinson's with the probiotic.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, is that on your thing, or yeah, well, you should just share it so we all have it on tape.
Share.
Oh, did you want to share any more on the organization or the nonprofit?
I mean, I set up the 501c3 back at 10 years ago when I set up the Bio Collective, because I thought, well, maybe the research, like people want to fund the research, but they won't want to invest in this company because the vision is too big, but they might want to invest in the research. So over the years, I haven't really used it to its full potential, I would say, but I've had people who were interested in the microbiome research who would say, I'll give you $5,000 or $10,000 so you can go do this little piece of research. And so through doing that over these years, I've been able to do the sequencing and get the data and recruit little pieces along the way of the Parkinson's stuff. And by doing that, then I actually got someone, I would say, who's a bigger donor, who then would, he started out giving me, $5,000, and then it was $10,000, and this year it'll be $50,000 to work on these pieces of the Parkinson's puzzle that other people aren't working on.
Thank you. I'll check out your blog.
Okay.
That's awesome. And there's one other question, Martha, about has your research dealt with autism related issues?
So we have actually, so I've done a lot of collaboration with another entrepreneur and a nonprofit and funder. So the entrepreneur is had a company that was focused on autism and partly the microbiome. So his name is John Slattery, and I've done a lot of work with him looking at what the overlap in Parkinson's and Alzheimer's is. There's a lot of overlap in the metabolism of those two things. And then I've also been involved with a woman in California, Elizabeth Horn, who has, I would say, taken a similar, slightly different approach, but similar approach. She has an autistic daughter and has funded a lot of data collection and research and bringing scientists in from different areas. And she has a meeting every 2 or 3 years where she brings together for 2 days at her home in these informal kind of dinners and just mingling with scientists and citizen scientists and people who are affected by these diseases. And she's having another one of these in October where in particular, Sergey Brin has a fund that is very interested in both autism and Parkinson's. His mother had Parkinson's and he has an autistic child. And so she's actually Elizabeth is bringing together these nonprofit aspects, the big data, machine learning, and connecting those dots between autism and Parkinson's. And I've been fortunate to be included in that.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for coming to this launch party. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the love and support. I will send out an email to everyone with some follow-ups and some of the celebrations. We have hit 4 categories of #1 so far today. Let's see, personal finance, crowdfunding, women in business while we were on this call, and investing basics I just saw. So that's incredible. And that was really just from all of your support. So I am forever grateful. I am so happy that I have this amazing, amazing community. And one last thing in the last minute that we have, many of you have heard me tell the story about how Mr. Marcia plays a lot of golf. And I would get annoyed that he was playing so much golf. And I thought, well, where's my golf course? Because he gets to interact with all these people. Well, you're on my golf course. So thank you so much. And thank you for being here. I really appreciate you all.
Thank you, Marcia.
And thank you, Martha and Alicia and everybody who spoke today. Appreciate it.